Welcome, everybody. We're going to be taking a look at the Module 5 assignment. This is called an agency manager. And the grand objective is we're going to create an application to manage employees at an agency. Let's take a look at the requirements really quick. We're going to create a dictionary of job titles and job descriptions. And then it says research and summarize the job description, citing your sources and comments if you found them online. And I have some definitions already created for these. So if you guys want, I can share them with you. But these are the titles that we're working with. So we have account manager, project manager, senior developer, junior developer, and you can imagine what kind of a firm this might be, right? It might be like a firm that does app creation or software development of some sort. We will also create an employee class with the following properties: first name, last name, username, email, job title. We will have methods for init. We'll have a string function, and then we'll also have a get job description method that's built in to the class structure. We're going to pre-populate with a list of 3 employees, and then we're going to create a menu with the following options. So we're going to list, add, remove, and list jobs, right? And then have an exit. It says validate the following: first and last name, letters only. The username, 6 lowercase and 4 numbers. Sounds like regex, right? We're going to be using that to do that. And then to check email. Unfortunately, we already have routines written to do that work. We just have to get the syntax right, which we will work on. There's a sample of the runtime here for each one of the major actions. And I'm just scrolling through it pretty quickly for people in the video format. But I'm going to go ahead and get VSC up and running here. I probably need to close out all my junk from last time, which I do. I do have the helper file here. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of file management. So I'm going to jump out to my file system here and do that task first, right? And as goofy as that sounds, I always like to have all my stuff in order first, and this is one of like my old school quirks, I suppose. I like everything to be right in the place it needs to be. So when I roll into my work, I'm not hunting for it. So you see, like right now, I'm moving the helper file over to the folder where the application is. Right. So that's my first step. And I already have the folder pre-created for this assignment. I am going to make sure that everything inside the IDE here is closed. Then I'm going to attach to that other folder. Right, and there's the helper file already there for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new program here. I'm just simply going to call it Module 5 assignment. And if you want to call it agency manager or whatever, that's your choice. I'm just naming it in a way that will make sense to me, in the future. I am also pulling up my cheat sheets here to make this go as quickly as possible. I guess I could have done that in advance, but hey, hindsight's 2020. All right, so let's start with some basics here. I am going to be using the helper file. So I'm going to say from helper import, and you know what? I'm not sure what I'm importing yet. I might use most of it, so I'm just going to do the star thing or the asterisk to bring everything in. Also feeling that there's probably a possibility that we're going to be using regex here within the application. So I'm just going to pull that library in. If we don't use it, well, we can get rid of it. Not a big deal. Next thing is we were asked to create a dictionary of all the roles, and I'm just going to paste mine in. I know it feels like cheating, but I do have it pre-created. So here's all the roles. I have my account manager, project manager, senior and junior developers with descriptions of what they do. This is in the form of a Python dictionary. I am going to be polite and put it in the chat for you guys so you don't have to type all that if you haven't done it yet, because that will help to accelerate our workflow. It's just information. Anyhow, it has nothing really to do with programming logic, right? So I think it's okay to share. Next thing that we need to do is we need to create a class um, definition for an employee. And so I'll begin by just dropping in the class identifier. And then we need to go right into our init function here. So double underscore init. We'll put the self in there. And then I think it's first name, last, username, email, and job title. And since I have them all queued up here, let's just paste those in. Right, put a colon at the end. And then we're ready to start assigning these to the internal variables of the class. So we're just going to follow the pattern that we've used throughout the class, which is to do this. And then, if you follow that pattern, and yeah, I'm switching to copy paste here, we do this. And so that's our init function. We're just taking all of those and assigning them to variables inside the object. We're also going to do a string function, so let's do that. Double underscore str double underscore. We will have the self-referring piece in there. We don't need to send anything in here. We just want it to print the internal variables. And I have a statement pre-prepared for that. And I don't know if this is helpful for you guys or not, but there it is in the chat, just in case you're using it the same way I am. Right. And I want you to notice here that there is a little bit of formatting going on. I'm tabbing the name in, right? The name and all the details. I'm putting uline characters in there. I'm using string interpolation to put it all up on screen. And this is just going to return back to wherever it's being called from, and it's pre-configured to print. We're also asked to build a function with this title, get job description. And a little bit of logic we're going to throw into this one. And I have this if statement kind of pre-structured here. Let me just drop it in and we can talk about what it means. So if the job title of the person that we're currently dealing with in this object is in the title role, so in other words, that job title exists, then we'll return the job title back to the application. Otherwise, we're just going to write an else to say that it's not found, right? So maybe it's a new job title, meaning that you might have to add it, right? So that happens at places, right, where they have new titles for people. I'll take a moment there so you guys can get caught up here. All right, but that is the class definition. And I'm going to come back to the margin here and go down a line. And then we start building a Python list of employee objects, and we're going to pre-populate that. Now, once again, I'm going to share that with you because this is just data anyhow. Right, so here's my Python list of employee objects, right? So this will actually create the employee objects and put them in the list. So we got John, Jane, and Tommy. I'm not sure where those came from, but all right. As we've been doing kind of in our pattern of app building and kind of the latter portion of this class, we are going to drive the whole application with a big while loop at the bottom. So that's where I'm moving to next. Right, so I'm just going to come down to the bottom here, make a little space in there. We're just going to force a big loop to run all the time until the user decides they're done. We're going to put their options on the screen. So notice all the new line characters in there. Right, some blank lines. But I got the whole menu on one line. That's pretty good. I will tell you, the one thing I don't like about doing that is I don't get to see kind of like what it looks like in an ASCII art format, but hey, it is what it is. If you can conceptualize it, you can print it and see it and whatever. We're also going to get the user choice. We're going to use one of our helper functions that we have in the helper file, and that is the get int in range function, this one right here that we're calling in. And we're just setting the upper and lower bounds. So like they can type anything from 1 to 5. And our external function handles that. Then we go into our uh, big if statement, which handles the user choices. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to paste the whole thing in. And then you'll notice we have 4 functions here that we have not created yet, thus the yellow underlines. And my pattern, and what I encourage you guys to do too, is this is not a bad way to build an application, is to kind of build your menu, set up the structure to call everything, then build empty functions, and then populate them. And my pattern, I mean, this is what I've done ever since I've learned how to develop, is I just do the easy stuff first, right? Whatever seems easiest, let's do that, right? And then before you know it, you're most of the way there. So I'm gonna just follow that what I just said. So I'm gonna just come up here and I'm gonna do a declaration for each one of these, and I'm just gonna put pass in it for now so we don't get errors. And I'm also just copy pasting a Y once again to prevent errors, real frankly, right? If I was using a different language and different IDE, and my brain immediately goes to Visual Studio, the full-blown product. I think in that product, that if I have this kind of a setup, there is a way for you to go to recognize the IDE does that this doesn't exist, and then you right click and it just creates it for you, right? So if visual, it says extract method, I'm not sure what that does. Okay, well, yeah, not quite. Right. All right, so we'll just backtrack there, but like I'm waiting for somebody to square me on this and go, no, it does it automatically. Maybe there's like an extension that you add that does that. This one I'll type, but it's weird, it's like you would think I would encourage you guys to type everything out, but the reality is sometimes when you're typing you mistype, kind of like when you're speaking and you misspeak, right? If you have the opportunity to copy paste or autocomplete because it's recognizing it, I think my personal philosophy on it is you go for it, right? You use that tool. Just like when you're typing an email in like Gmail or something, and it says like dear and it fills out the name, you just press tab, right? Because it's correct. All right. So we did these one at a time here, and I'm thinking we have 2 list functions. So one is to list the employees, and the other one is to list jobs. And to me, both of those sound pretty simplistic. In fact, um, let's probably just start with list employees. I think that would help because we already have employees that we can look at, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to remove the pass statement here. And then what I'm going to start with is just a simple print. And I'm just going to basically drop some text on the screen and say employees. I am doing a new line character in there, so it pushes it down 1 line before it displays. This is going to be all the way at the left margin. I'm using string interpolation there, but I guess I didn't need to. I'm also going to set up a counter variable here because I am going to go into a loop, and I'm going to be using this to set the number in front of the employee because that's what the example showed. And so I'm going to set up a for loop here, and I'm going to say for each employee singular in the employees list, we'll do the following task. We will first print the employee, and what's I going to be here? employee one, employee two, employee, etc. And then on the next line, I'm going to do a string interpolation here. And I'm going to print out the employee object, right? Now, keep in mind, when I do this command, right, the employee class has that string function in it. So this is really what it's going to do. This is one of the reasons why we do this too, right? It's so, isn't that like so much easier just to put that in, knowing that this is going to happen without having to recreate it each time? Yeah, you're starting to see the magic of it if you're tapping into that. And then what's beautiful about that too is like your code here is very simplistic and clean and not convoluted. Like, what is all that? You know, you're like, oh, it's just printing the employee. I got it. Okay. You know, you just move on. All right. So this is my list employees. All right. As rudimentary as it is, I'm going to do a save and I'm going to run. I want to see this running already. And I know only one of my menu options is going to work, and that's list employees, but let's trigger it and see if it's doing it. All right. And take a look at the output here, right? This gives me a little header, employee one, employee two, employee three, right? With their job descriptions. I was maybe a little bit verbose with those job descriptions, but hey, whatever. It's all right. It is working. And then I'm going to choose 5 to exit, and all of that is working. All right. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to build the list jobs. So I'm just going to go right down to the bottom here and remove this pass statement. And all right, so what is this actually going to list? Let's think about this for a second. It's going to list all those roles that we decided on or I should say at the top of the document. So the title role dictionary is what we're going to do. So we're going to list all of these. Okay, now why do we need to list them? Just so we can see what the options are, basically, right? So that should be a very simplistic task, knowing that it is a dictionary. So I'm going to say for each job is what I called it last time in the title role dictionary. We're just going to do a printout. The printout is going to look like this. Right? So we'll print what the job is, new line, tab it in, and then I'm going to put the description that goes with it. I'm going to scroll this to the top of the screen, and once again, I'm going to save, and I'm going to do a run again to test that feature. So let's just run option number 4 here. Press enter. And so there you go. Account manager, project manager, senior developer. Okay, and I see some stuff I want to change about it as I'm like running it. So the one thing I see is at the very end of each one of these, I'm going to put in a new line character. And I think before I even go into it, I'm just going to print a blank line just to make it look nicer. This is me being picky, by the way, right? Would it be okay? Yeah, would it be okay without? Yeah, it would be okay. Shravan?
My function just constantly keeps repeating my if while function at the bottom of the page. I don't know if it's
You know
just a
what,
quick.
Shravan? Why don't we let's pause the video here for a second and take a really quick look. All right, we're going to move on to the next function here. I was making a couple of tweaks to my output. So you know what? Let me run that really quick just to see how that plays out. All right, so I'm going to now do a fresh run, and I'm going to do the list jobs. And see, I just wanted it to be a little bit more spread apart. And I'm a little bit happier with that. I'm not super happy with it if you can't tell, but hey, it is what it is. I don't want to spend all day on this, but if I wanted to make it look just so, I would totally dig in and do that. All right. Next thing that we want to do is let's exit out here cleanly. And let's work on I'm wondering which one might be the easier one to do. And I'm thinking about this. I think adding an employee. Okay, so think about what has to happen if I'm adding an employee, right? I need first name, last name, their username, their email address, and their job role. And I got a prompt for all of that and validate that it's all good, right? That sounds like a lot of work. So okay, what does it take to remove an employee? That sounds like a whole lot less. So that's where I'm going to go next, right? So if you guys follow my strategy here, I think it's a good strategy. All right, so let's go here. Let's do that. I can remove people before I add any. As we've done before, if you want to like see who you're going to remove, it's probably helpful to list them. So I'm going to call the list employees function. So let's put them up on screen and see who we're going to delete. This is a thing that we've done before, right? So I created a variable last time I called employee index, and you could just call it index or I, or if you wanted, if that's easier for you. And then I just have this function that we run in our helper file called getInt, right? This is the one without a range, right? And just to make sure that we're coordinating with the data structure. Data structures start counting at 0. So we're going to grab the number with the employee and subtract 1, and then we're dealing with the right one. So which employee are we removing? Employee 2. And so that would subtract 1 and do that. Then we just do the pop command. So we're going to say employees dot pop. And what are we removing at which position? Whatever that employee index is, remember that's already been corrected with the -1 on the step above. And then to make sure it worked, we'll relist the employees, and our remove employee should be good. Doing a Control S to save here, folks. I'll move it to the top of the screen. I'm going to run. I'll start by just going right to that command. So I'm going to click in the console here. And of course, I typed errant 3 up there. So let's come back. Type a 3 here. All right, so we have our list here. Which employee am I removing? Let's go ahead and remove employee number 3. So I'm going to type in 3. And then it relisted them, and now I only have 2 employees. Once again, I saw a little thing I want to correct in my output, and this is where I'm probably getting a little too picky. Like I'm going to put a new line character before that prompt. It would look better to me if it was 1 line down. All right, now let's work on what we're deeming to be the hardest part of the application. But notice, now we have everything else done. This doesn't seem so bad, right? Even if it's longer, and it's a psychological thing, real frankly, to kind of work in this fashion. Keep in mind, we're going to be asking for these pieces of information. So we're just going to do a bunch of prompts, right? Also keep in mind that in the helper function here, we have created this get letters function or method, basically, that makes sure that whatever they're typing in is either uppercase or lowercase letters, and at least one of them, right? So just make sure that we're typing in letters. So I'm going to utilize that function here. So I'm just going to start prompting. So I'm going to say, for example, first name equals get letters. And then the prompt that I'm sending, which is going to be enter first name. And we should probably split those apart here because it's not a variable. Enter first name. And last name is, excuse me, very similar. So we'll just copy, paste, change a couple of letters, right? Don't reinvent the wheel here. And we have the first name captured and the last name captured. Now, keep in mind, the get letters function is handling all the error correction. So if somebody is failing to type in letters that match upper or lower case and at least one letter, then we're going to prompt them to do it again and again and again until they get it right. So eventually, hopefully they get it right. If they get it right, then it just returns the input and we're all good. Okay. Now we're going to move on to creating the username. And as I look at my solution from last year, we don't have a thing that fits exactly what the username does. So I'm just going to go back to the problem definition here. So I just want to show you this, right? The username has to have 6 lowercase letters and 4 numbers. So no uppercase. It has to have 4 numbers. So exactly 4 numbers, not 3 numbers or 2 numbers or 1 or more. No special characters. I don't have a pre-built function for that. So that I'm going to have to handle right in my code. So I'm going to set up a while loop again, force to true. So this is going to keep running until they get it right. And we're going to prompt for the username. So I'm just say username equals, and I'm just doing a standard input statement here. So we'll say input, and we'll say enter username. Now, if you were polite, you would have a little note in here, right? And I would argue, if I was writing a real app, I would probably throw a thing up on the screen that said 6 letters, 4 numbers, all lowercase. So if you wanted to add that, that would be a thing, right? I'm not doing it. I'm going to make them struggle a little bit, right? Then I'm going to set up a Boolean here called isMatch, right? So this is going to hold a Boolean variable. And I'm going to run a regex search on what they just typed in. This one I'm going to copy paste for you, right? Because I don't want you to mess this one up. So I'll paste it in. Oops, and I grab my variable name too. Sorry. And remember, with the regex statement, start with the caret, end with a $sign. We want any of the lowercase letters are fine. So A to Z, but no uppercase A to Z, right? How many? 6. And then numbers, any number from 0 to 9. How many? 4. Okay, it's actually, this is pretty simple regex. This stuff you can wrap your head around. It's when you get those really complicated ones that, make it really tricky. All right. So now let's see if it's good, right? So we're going to say if is match. So in other words, if true, it matches. We're going to jump out. We're going to hit a break statement and we're out. We're out of the loop. Okay. If not, we'll do our else. We got to give them some sort of a message here. Then we tell them, basically, please enter 6 lowercase letters followed by 4 numbers. Now, see, this is what I'm talking about before. Does it make sense to give that to them in advance? And I would argue yes. Right? Okay. All right, so you're kind of setting yourself up for where they're going to get it wrong at least once is kind of my point here. All right, now of course,
I would say unrelated. It's just finding like where there's password policies, like it tells them, okay, you need to change your password. They enter a password. No, you have to follow this.
Yeah, you know what? That is pretty true, right? Like this does happen in the real world. Like you type in a password and then it's like, oh, you got to have at least one special character. It's like, oh, of course. But not all systems are like that. I do find it very curious though. Does that make a password more secure? Yeah. And then I'm noticing like Greg's head is shaking and yeah, generally speaking, I think the length of a password is more effective at enforcing password security than the complexity of it, right? Complex passwords then come back to bite you because you forget them. And then you need a password manager, and sometimes those can get hacked, and then you go down this whole rabbit hole. All right, so now we're going to add to our employee list of employee objects. So I'm going to run the append command, and then inside of here, I'm going to call the employee class, the constructor, the init function. And then I'm going to send in all the stuff that I just created. So we notice how it gives me a list here. So first name, last name, username, email, and job type. All right, so let's talk about the job title thing. We haven't done that yet, right? So I'm being a little preemptive here. I'm like, I'm like, I got the first name, I got the last name, I got the username. Oh, wait a second. I still need to get the email put together. And if you guys noticed our list before, the email is comprised of the username and the top level domain. Okay, so like I'm basically what I'm telling you is we're not quite ready for this step yet. There's still more stuff we have to do. So I guess let's prompt for the email address. And with this one, we do have a function in our helper, right, called get email. So we can validate that it's a valid email, right? So let's do that since we have it available. Why not? Right. So that handles all the error handling for us. Right. So we have the email address, but now we need the job title. Okay. So the job title is going to be entered. So somebody's going to type like senior developer or, janitor or whatever. Right. So maybe there's a job role that doesn't exist yet. Maybe they're going to hire a graphic designer. I'm just like, or a database person or something like that. So let's just do a prompt for that. But now I'm thinking, well, if the job title already exists, we don't need to create a new one. But if it doesn't exist, then we need to create the job title and its description. Right, you guys feeling where I'm going with that? So I'm doing another while loop here. So I'm, once again, forcing the run to true. I'm going to do my prompt for job title. So I'm just going to do this. And we're just going to a straight up input on this one. So I'm just going to say enter job title. If we find that the job title is already listed up above in title roles, right? We're jumping out. Otherwise, then we do some more prompting. Enter a job title from the following list. So I guess I'm coercing them to pick one of the ones that already exist. Feel what I'm saying? Right. So we don't, sorry, no graphic designers at this design house. Just developers, just coders. All right. Then we want them to be able to see this, by the way. So I'm going to use this print command here. And I don't know if you guys remember what this one does with the join function. Nobody remembers. This is where you take two pieces of text. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Alexis.
Oh yeah. It combines like each role, but in between each role, or in this case would be each job title, it would then have the comma and space.
Right. So in other words, it's gonna say account manager, comma space, senior developer, comma space. That's what it's gonna do. All right. That's all of it. Once we have all that info, and notice none of these are underlining now, we can build the object and then it's added, and then we should be able to see it. So I'm leave this on the screen for just a moment if you guys are trying to screen capture or whatever. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Frantically grabbing your snipping tool, right? Print screen, print screen. All right, here goes. I'm running it. And I'm going to make the console pretty large in this instance. So let's start by listing. So we have our employees listed. Let's go ahead and we already proved that remove and list jobs already works, right? So let's go ahead and add an employee, enter the first name. I'll just put myself in here, I guess. Username. And the username has to have what, 4 numbers? So let's not break it right off the bat. And then we have to have an email address, which is, whatever I want it to be. Oh, wait. Wrong universe here. Let's just be an account manager. How about that? So all of that worked because I followed all the correct rules. It didn't like question me at all because I did it correctly, but I'm going to do it again. Let's just make sure it got in there though. And so there you see me at the bottom. So that worked out okay. Right. This time, let's try to add one and let's try to break everything about it. Right. With the first name, well, there's nothing there is checking or is it right? So can I just put some numbers in? Oh, okay. I can put in letters here. So who should we indoctrinate here? Coming up with names, folks. Now we want a username. So I'm just going to do W Smith. Okay. W. Okay, now I'm going to try to put some uppercase letters in there. Doesn't like that. Only 3 numbers. Four numbers. And of course, the pattern that they've been using is you match up the username with the domain. So what is he going to be? Senior developer. And now we'll do a list. And there he is added. Let's go ahead and you know what? I quit. So they're going to remove me. Which employee are we removing? Number 4. You can't fire me. I quit. Okay, let's do another listing. Right. So list works, add works, remove works, list jobs. Let's do that one again, even though we did it. Right, so you can see what the roles are if you wanted to. And then finally, let's exit. All right, so that's a completed app, folks. The recording will end here.